Welcome. Well, you're quieting down really nicely, so as long as you're getting quiet, I'll take the opportunity to welcome you. This is the Job Fair Insider's Tip, so welcome. You got a name card, a 3x5 sort of card. We're not using that for attendance. That's being used for two things. And so one side is a question, and we want everyone to submit a question. We'll be using those to ask the panelists in a few minutes, questions that you have, because you're here for a reason, and we want to know what you want to know about. And then the second part for the name, I will not read your name and shame you and say, this is who asked this question. The second side is being used for door prize drawing. So we already got your attendance at the front. We don't care about that. So that has two purposes. So while you're listening to me yak for just a couple more minutes, write your question, write your name, and then pass them down this way, and we have people with baskets, just like at church. People with baskets will be collecting those on the aisle. Okay? My name is Becky Durham, and I work in the Career Development Center, and everyone you see checking you in and around the office and various places also work on staff. So we're here to share information with you about the job fair. So these are the panel members. We will get to that in a minute. You also have that on the handout in front of you, and we very much appreciate having them participate today to share their insights. I'm going to highlight a few of the slides as they go by here. There's a special event coming up next week. You do need to pre-register for it. It's a great practice for job fair. Spring on-campus interviewing is also taking place. If you're not aware of that, please educate yourself. Anyone not signed up for the job fair yet? Deadline is next Wednesday. Information's at the table. At the job fair, first time ever, we're going to do free LinkedIn headshots. And so you're going to be dressed up anyway. And the company that does Life Touch, remember when you were kids and they lined you up in the auditorium or at school and they took your pictures? They're going to be at the fair, and they're the ones doing them. Just missed the last slide, but there is, for those of you going to the fair, which I'm assuming is most of you sitting in this room, there is a first-time ever app available. If you have ability on your phones or a pad of some sort to download apps, it's MNPC Career Fair Plus. And you can download that, and it's going to take all the information from the website and dump it in there. It's currently not as current as I would like. It's presently not as current as it will be shortly this week. I've heard rumor there's about 268 employers, and right now there's only 244 in there. And then the other thing that's going to be available is the map, and it will link your companies that you're able to save in a folder to the map, and you'll be able to do research, write notes on there, and all of the special events that are there will be posted as well. So that's kind of a new feature. For those of you that have been to the fair before, this is the first time ever. For those of you that haven't, this is a really unique, great tool to allow you to kind of bring your notes with you to the fair. Almost everybody always has their phone with them all the time anyway, so it's a great way for you to keep updated and write some notes and find out where they are ahead of time. So a lot of other slides about the fair for those of you that haven't been, ideas on things to wear, what it looks like when you're there. We also have some YouTube videos of these available as well. Okay? So at this point, why don't you pass your cards down this direction, and we'll have the people with the baskets grab those. And while you're doing that, I am going to have the panelists introduce themselves. And I've asked each one of them to talk about who they are, what their role is, kind of a little bit about their experiences at the fair, and then one tip that they would share with everybody. So that's how we're going to start. And then we'll open it up to the questions that you have on the cards. So if you wouldn't mind, Misty, we'll just start down at the end with you. Do you know where the on button is there? It's wee, teeny, tiny, way, way, way down.
Nope. Can you hear me? Okay, perfect. All right. Hi, everyone. I'm Misty. I work at Pace Analytical in Minneapolis. If you don't know much about us, we're a scientific company, so lots of lab positions and things like that. We have our own laboratories and positions on site at our customers' labs. So I'm our coordinator in recruiting, so I set up interviews on site with our customers. I submit candidates to positions. I maintain spreadsheets. I do offer letters and offer packets. So I kind of have a lot going on and wear a lot of different hats. So doing multiple things all throughout my day. So it's a fun job and lots of different things to do. So think of is just overall communication with people when you're looking for a job. And anything from how you write your emails. I mean, you would be surprised the things you see. Use capital letters, use correct grammar, things like that. Just super simple that you think everyone, is this cutting out? Think of, but sorry, I don't know what's going on. And then just keeping in touch with whether it's the company you're hoping to work for. Thank you. Yeah. Okay.
It's better.
All right. Sorry about that. Can you hear me at all?
Yep.
Okay, perfect. Communication, as far as just communicating with the company, staying in touch with people, following up is really important to stay on their radar. And I kind of lost my train of thought but when the mic was going, but hopefully that'll make sense. So just anything, the simple things that you would keep in mind that you're talking to somebody who you want to represent yourself really well through. So just keep that in mind when you're talking to anybody at career fairs and anything else, communicating after interviews and things like that. So.
Thanks, Misty. Jen.
Hi, I'm Jennifer Linder, and I work for Best Buy. I have been with Best Buy for about 18 years and started my life here at St. Thomas. I was a college grad from St. Thomas in operations and economics and started right out of school at Best Buy, sort of indirectly through the job fair. I currently manage in demand planning and supply chain, and I have responsibility for 3 groups. One is store life cycles, which is opening, closing, remodeling, and relocating stores. Secondly is our drive time team for supply chain, which drive times are things like back to school and holiday, anything that's a very big event for the supply chain. And then the third team is retail support, which is sort of the in-between between our inventory and demand planning teams and our retail stores out in throughout the country. Tip. My tip would be to show confidence. And there's 4 pieces to that, I think. One is your handshake. Be confident with your handshake. Secondly is your body language. We've all seen lots and lots of students through the years, and so the ones that show self-confidence through their body language is important. The tone of your voice, show confidence in your tone of voice. And then lastly, confidence in what you are there for. Why is it that I should talk with you? Show confidence in something that you've done, some little tidbit that you can tell me about in about a minute that makes me more interested in talking with you further.
Thanks, Jen. Leanne.
Hi, I'm Leanne Raytar, and I work at Hennepin County, who is located in downtown Minneapolis. I've been with Hennepin County for about almost 30 years now. We have right now about 30 departments. We do many different things. We provide services to Hennepin County residents, which includes your transportation, your roads and bridges, social services, corrections. We have IT, we have a lot of general government. We do taxpayer services where we collect taxes. We have HR, I can go on and on. We do many things. And my tip to you would be when you approach us is greet us like they mentioned here earlier and I'll just give you an example. You would say, my name is Leanne Raytar and I am a graduate here at St. Thomas and I am majoring in marketing. And then you'd mention a little bit about your interest or what you have done before, maybe some work experience, and then you would say, what would you have available for me? And that way you tell us a little bit about yourself, and that'd probably be your elevator speech, I guess. And it really does work. Because we do so many things at Hennepin, it's just easier for for you to introduce yourself in that manner. And I have one other tip. I've been going to job fairs for maybe as an employer for about 7 years now. And we notice graduates, and this might be a little humorous or so, but my tip to you is if you buy a new suit or have a new coat, please clip the little tag or the little stitching that's in the back of it. We just think that's funny. we look at that just for a joke. Okay. So good luck.
Oh, sorry, double tasking here, so I'm not paying attention. Lydia, thanks.
Hi, everyone. My name is Lydia Bench-Briggs, and I'm here with Boom Lab. I was a consultant for Boom Lab for about 18 months, started right after graduation, and now I've moved into the field of recruiting, which has been exciting and fun so far. Boom Lab is a project management consulting company based out of Minneapolis. So our consultants work on-site at the client all over the metro area. So let's see, we do a big push of our recruiting is at the Minnesota Private College Fair, so we're really looking forward to meet all of you. And my tip was actually sort of like Leanne's in terms of apparel, where if you buy a new suit or a new pair of shoes or something, that's great, but just wear it once before you go. I think it's very clear. It's clear if you're uncomfortable, and you just want to look like the best representation of yourself. So if you're wearing shoes that you can't walk in, by the end of the day, it's a lot of standing and walking, and you'll be very unhappy. And so it is more professional to be wearing flats and comfortable than wearing high heels and miserable. So make sure that you're comfortable in what you're wearing and not having to focus on your outfit when you want to just be focusing on yourself and presenting the best self that you have to your recruiter.
And Zach.
Hello, my name is Zach Shapiro. I'm a senior here at St. Thomas, majoring in human resource management. I guess I'm kind of representing the students here from that side. My tip to you would be at the job fair, do your research on your companies beforehand, which ones you want to go for. Come up with questions, because if you do land that interview and you come back, you're going to want to ask good questions that get the interviewer talking more than you. Because, I mean, if they're talking more than you, then, I don't know, you have less opportunity to screw up. And that just seems to work out. Also, networking, you're going to be with a lot of your fellow students. There's going to be a ton of companies there. So don't be shy. Reach out to companies you might not be interested in, but at the same time, like, just create relationships, because you never know when those can come back down the road. And I guess another thing about me, I just started at Ecolab January 5th in talent acquisition. So yeah, good luck to you guys.
Yay, Zach! Woo.
Hi, everyone.
This is Maggie.
Can you hear me? Okay. I'm Maggie. I'm a senior here at St. Thomas. I'm a marketing major and communication journalism minor. I've actually attended the job fair for the past 2 years, so I'm feeling like I'm kind of a pro now. I'll be starting at Target this June, sorry. And my best tip to you, kind of going off what Zach said, is know the companies that you're planning on talking to. Do your research ahead of time. You can go onto the job fair website and see what companies will be there and what jobs or internships they're offering. So if you go and actually plan out who you want to talk to, you can narrow down to like 5 or 6 that you can start off with, get those done right away, and actually talk to who you want to instead of just picking a random company out of 260 that will be there.
Thanks. Appreciate it. Yeah, go ahead, Leanne.
And I know we are up here and we're telling you to do this and do that and do this, but really, relax. It sounds like it's a lot of pressure, but it really isn't. And we've met many students, and some of them, yes, they're a little nervous. In fact, I was at a job fair not too long ago, and the first student that came up to us, it was his first, he said, "This is my first job fair, I'm really nervous." But he was so genuine, and he's hired. We hired him at Hennepin County, so I think it had to do more with being really sincere. So just relax. And another thing I want to say, sorry. I have a daughter. I did have a daughter up in Fargo, North Dakota, and she majored in interior design. And so she went to a job fair, her first job fair that was last spring, just like you're going now. And she did the research. And she went to a company that she was interested in visiting. And make sure you grab the person that you're talking to their business card. Because after she left the company, or visiting the company, she wrote them an email reiterating her interest to work for them. She also attached her resume, and her resume also had her website. It showed a lot of the interior design projects that she worked on, where you could put your LinkedIn information on a resume. And that way, when the resume is forwarded electronically, just a click of a button, that person's going to know a little bit more about you. And that's what happened with her. They phoned her, and they had a little bit of a conversation. A few months later, they gave her a phone interview, and then a month later, they flew her down to Billings, Montana, and she now has a job at CTA in the architectural engineering firm, and just loves it. So, I mean, that worked for her, so that's my tip to you also.
Thanks. All right. Everyone, we collected your questions, and they sorted them in piles. The biggest pile, you're not alone. Let me show you this. There's like a whole stack of them, and it all has to do with elevator speeches. So what do you say? What's included? How do you approach somebody with the elevator speech? What do you want to hear? Should I customize it for each one? So let's spend some time on this, because it seems to be a really big topic. Amber, you're right back there. If you would hold up one of the packets that I'm going to the fair packets, all of you should have received one of these. But the very last page of the packet, if you flip it around to the back side, is kind of a script thing. If you have that with you, you might want to take a look at that right now, because all of the people up here are going to address, first of all, what is an elevator speech? Why do I need to do it? And what should be included? And should I customize it? So let's do a random popcorn thing, and it looks like Lydia's ready to go.
Right, so an elevator speech is sort of the way you walk up to a recruiter and say, hi, this is my name, and this is what I'm interested in doing. So I think we were talking about this at lunch, actually, is in sort of a joking way, where if someone comes up and it's very clear they haven't prepared an elevator speech, and they walk up to you and they go, hi, and you are just like, hello. And then just sort of that natural how to proceed. It looks much better on you if you're the one taking initiative and steering the conversation to talk about you, your interests, your major, and what it is you're looking for in a career. So I think echoing what these two said in tips is, having done your research on the company, you don't need to change everything you say for each company, because you do really want to give an accurate representation of yourself. But being able to say, so Leanne said they hire for any position at Hennepin, so maybe it's a little more vague. At my company, for example, there are only 3 roles that we hire for: project coordinator, business analyst, and tech analyst. So have an idea what you're interested in that company is offering when you go up, and just say your name, your major, when you're graduating, and what you're looking for in a career. And then the conversation should flow smoothly from there.
Let's keep going on that one, because that's a popular one. So everybody kind of ante in a little bit about elevator speeches, because they're freaked out by it, and they need to know that it is a thing you need to do, and how do you prepare for it?
Yeah, the one thing that I would add is, what little nugget can you tell me that's going to help you stand out from the other 500 people that I might talk to that day? So it might be something that you've done in your short work experience or your college career that is relevant to the position that I'm hiring for. And I go, ooh, that woman was really good at X, and she told me about that, and I want to remember that, because we do that every single day, right? So if there's a position online that you've seen for a company that interests you, just have a nugget about how you fit into that position that would make that hiring manager want to talk to you more and again at another time.
For sure, I totally agree with that. Another thing, we kind of said that before, but just be natural. Be yourself. It's most comfortable that way. You don't have to have a speech planned out like you would for like a wedding, word for word or something like that. You kind of want it to be like a wedding. Just come naturally, be able to talk to people, and that's going to make it go the most smoothly for you. So it doesn't have to be, know what you want to say and what you want to talk about, but you don't have to read off a note card or something like that, because if they need to know more, they will ask you. What else? Yeah, it's easier that way. Obviously, we're just normal people, just like you guys. I don't expect you to remember everything. I already forgot what I was saying up here before when the mic went out. So if you're yourself and just represent yourself well. Like if you would highlight it on your resume, I would say that you probably want to tell them about that. So for example, in science, I always like to hear about the research or instrumentation that they've worked with, because that sets them apart, because it's something they've done above and beyond the coursework that shows they've worked with this or had experience doing this. So that's kind of a good tip, is just if you'd like to highlight on your resume, that's something you probably want to highlight while talking to somebody also.
Thanks. Let's get the mic down here, because these students have actually done it. So what's it like from a student's perspective to create that elevator speech and to walk up to a stranger and basically just start blabbing about yourself?
Well, for me, it was really nerve-wracking when I first started practicing my stuff, the elevator speech. But I went to a lot of networking happy hours, a lot of networking groups, and that was a great opportunity for me to practice that. Just meeting new people, meeting professionals from around the Twin Cities area. I'm involved with a few organizations outside of St. Thomas, so I had the opportunity to do that, which I'm very fortunate for. But I guess another thing, you just be direct but genuine. Tell them what you want. Chances are they're gonna they're gonna answer your questions, okay? And then obviously again, be genuine. And I think everything should work out for you guys, but practice what you want. Look in the mirror if you want to, grab a friend, go out to lunch, buy them pizza, and just practice your elevator speech.
Go to the networking event next Tuesday night that the alumni office is doing. Those are safe people. They're alum, they know, and the purpose of it is it's called speed networking, and they're going to give you 5 minutes at each table with an alum. And basically, you're just going to rotate tables very quickly. And I don't know, you won't talk to everybody in the room. I talked to them the other day. They have about 70 alum coming, and it's going to be in these 2 rooms. They do ask that you pre-register, and there's a website. I can put it up later, or we have a link to it on our website as well. They do ask for you to pre-register because they want to have an idea of how many students are going to be there. But it's Tuesday night, 6:30 to 8, and it's a great chance to practice that elevator speech and also network with other alum. Maggie's 2 cents worth on elevator speeches.
As embarrassing as it is, I did practice my elevator speech in the mirror, and it kind of gave you a lot more self-confidence because I got up in the whole suit, stood up, and practiced to myself. And by practicing and practicing and practicing, you actually get used to it, and it's like second nature. Through all the networking events that I've done, I've used it probably for the past 2 years, and regardless of where you are, you can just kind of change it, saying like, oh, I've been interested in this position. Can you tell me a little bit more about that? And that's the segue into them telling you about their company. But if you practice, if you do your research, it's going to come like second nature by the end of the job fair.
Maggie went to the fair as a sophomore. How many sophomores do I have? Oh, wow. Big number of sophomores. Yeah, and so sophomores have real mixed reviews at the fair. Some employers say you're too early, which is better than being too late. So this is your chance to get some name recognition, to find out who you're interested in talking to, who you can follow up with when you're ready so that they can be in touch with you. I think my mic just went now. So yeah, Maggie wants to add something.
Going as a sophomore, it was very mixed for myself. I did not like it and I liked it, but going as a sophomore, like I didn't get any jobs from it, but you got to experience it, where going the next year, you felt very sure of yourself. You knew exactly what to expect, so you're just kind of giving yourself the advantage for the next year. And who knows, maybe some people, if you really impress them, you're going to get an internship opportunity from it, but I wouldn't start with saying you're a sophomore because they kind of like shove you under the rug. They don't really want a sophomore unless you can really come and just kill it.
Yeah, the other tip I think is the why you're talking to this company, and we kind of all touched on that. Misty said something like that, but you know, why you're interested in the company that you're speaking to, because that shows right away. Maybe you did your research, but if the company doesn't know that, then that's not going to get you any farther. So if you can prove right away, you know, even visiting the website for the top companies that you're interested in beforehand can put you leaps and bounds ahead of the other people. So that's really important, I think. Like, oh, I see that you have a big community outreach program at your company, and I really like that you do that. I currently do some of that right now in my role doing this, and that sort of ties the why of them to you really seamlessly. The last thing I would say is smile. Like, smile at them, because if someone's smiling at you, it's really hard not to smile back at them. And so if you are smiling at your recruiter, they'll smile at you, and then all of a sudden everyone's a lot happier than they were a minute ago. So that can help calm your nerves down a little bit too, and just it shows that you're relaxed and comfortable and excited to talk to the company you're talking to.
I always tell students with the elevator speech, because it is a little bit unusual to walk up to a stranger and just start talking about yourself. If it helps you, and in your mind, think of that, you walk up to the table and pretend that person says to you, so tell me about yourself. So then it's sort of natural to you to talk about yourself, and this is your chance, sort of carte blanche, to talk about what you want to talk about. And they've all highlighted things on that they think are important for you to talk about. So you need to pick out what's your unique thing. This leads to the next pile of questions, and we've kind of already addressed it, but if anyone wants to elaborate on it more or highlight a certain thing, what makes somebody stand out in a good way? How do you make a good first impression? Ooh, you stumped the panel. Jen.
Well, I would say I think we all kind of just talked a little bit about that.
I think we've covered it, but reiterate.
Yeah, one thing that we talked a little bit about at lunch, Jennifer and I did, is we see a lot of students, and generally this isn't so much about what you say, but what you look like. I'm not good with names. I'll just say that. I am terrible with names. But I'll be able to tell you, oh, that was the girl. She had a navy blue suit on and that really big, chunky pink necklace. And she told me about what she did at Target, and I think we need that at Best Buy. So be professional in what you wear, but if you can have something that makes you stand out a little bit, that's helpful for people to remember you.
I'm just kind of stealing this from my marketing professor that I had. But he would always give the example of, like, tell a story during your elevator speech. Like, for his story, for example, was about a time he had to be persistent when he was in Germany and he'd had to get on the train and get to a place at a certain time, and how he missed the train but still got there. And it showed that he was very, like, on top of his stuff. He would get the job done, and he was a hard worker, and he'd do what it takes to get the job done. I know it's a pretty bad example. I'm not doing him justice at all by telling that. But maybe incorporate a story. That way, people remember stories. I mean, people have been telling stories since the beginning of humans, and we kind of retell those stories, and I don't know, it sticks with people a lot.
All right, thanks. Let's move on to, and it's kind of incorporated into a few of the other questions here, but so you've got your elevator speech. You're going to go up and introduce yourself. Then the next thing you need to do is hand them a resume. So we're going to talk a little bit about the resume. Should the resume be customized? What kind of paper should the resume bring on? How many resume papers or how many copies of my resume should I bring? So anything about resumes, and then is there anything else that I should bring? Cover letters, transcripts, business cards, any of that stuff. So have at it.
I think this also, I mean, you'll see so many of our answers tied into this today, but doing your research ahead of time and not going in blind, where if you know that there are 10 companies you're interested in that are hiring in the fields that you want, then for sure at least bring 10 resumes, one to hand out to each of the companies. But I would always bring backup. I don't think you can have too many resumes depending on who you want to talk to, because if you happen to wander up to someone that you weren't planning on and you make a connection, you don't want to be there empty-handed without that ability. And it also is a great talking point where you can highlight the things on your resume that you want to show them. So I would say overall, using nice paper better than like the classic copy paper is not a bad thing for you. And I don't know, maybe that's specific to my company, but I mean, it looks nice. It looks like you've put effort into it. You've thought about it beforehand. And so I would say that's a great thing to do.
Sometimes students do not have much work experience. However, you may be active in a club here at school, or you might have a leadership role. That's looked very highly upon. So I would also note that on your resume.
I would agree around the better paper. I mean, if you have the opportunity to show up really well, take that opportunity. That's in paper, that's in everything, right? I also would say that lead me to something on your resume. Point to it, show me. You'll see here that I did X, Y, Z, because I'm looking at this piece of paper and trying to take in what you're saying all at the same time. So lead me to something that would be important for me to know. And to your point around doing research on companies, you might have to tailor your resume a little bit to certain places, or at least tailor what you're pointing to different companies, because it might be more relevant to one company than another. In terms of other things to bring along, we don't really need cover letters. We don't need portfolio. If the portfolio helps you tell your elevator speech, then I would say bring it, right? But if it's just something you're going to hand out, it's probably not valuable.
What about the students? What kind of perspective on resume? Did you customize? How many did you bring? Any of that kind of stuff?
I brought a lot of resumes, because usually when you go up to a company and you start talking to the recruiter, they'll look over it and they'll glance over it, and then sometimes they'll ask you to take you through it. And just be prepared. Know your resume like it's like back of your hand, and be prepared to go over that. Just make sure you have enough copies.
Yeah, I brought over 20 copies, I think. I think I only went through about half of them, but it's better safe than sorry. My personal resume, I have an objective on top, where that was an objective that was general to go for, like, I was looking for a full-time job, or I was looking for an internship, something that it could work for all the companies, or if you can tailor it to certain ones if you know you're going there. I also have my LinkedIn and my personal website links at the top of my resume, so I think we touched on that before, where you could easily click on it. I think that's definitely interesting, because if they really like you, they're going to follow up and want more information on you. One more thing, just make sure it's one page. Don't have it stapled, don't have it 3 pages long with double space, just always something that people look out for.
Yeah, please.
Also, don't be afraid to highlight the best parts of your, like your best selling point, highlight that on your resume, and you don't have to include everything if it isn't relevant or isn't going to put you in the best light. So, for example, if you have a really high GPA, absolutely include that. If you have a high GPA within your major, then put that on. If your GPA isn't stellar and it's not going to attract a recruiter, you don't have to put it on there, and so you can get to those things later and they might ask you what it is, but you don't want to provide something that's going to be a dropout factor for them to look at it and then say, this GPA isn't high enough, so I'm going to put it aside. If it didn't have a GPA and it actually gave me a chance to talk to you, you could win me over before I'm even thinking about your GPA. So that's just an example, but if there are things that really do a good job selling you and showing you off, use them. And if it's just an average fact or one other thing, I guess, is I wouldn't include, unless you're maybe an underclassman looking for an internship, then maybe include things from high school. But if you're a senior looking for full-time employment, unless there's something you did in high school that is like amazing, you probably don't need to include high school things anymore, because recruiters will be more interested in what you've been doing in college and what experience you have so far, I would say. Would everyone agree with that? You don't really need high school?
Yeah, I mean, if they were part of There's only a couple things that kind of resonate with me when it comes to high school stuff, and one is an Eagle Scout, because I think about how much dedication and work and commitment that takes. And so if you were on the volleyball team, I probably don't need to know that, but if you were an Eagle Scout, that really shows commitment and sort of your work ethic and drive, and I can apply that to what I'm hiring for. The one thing I would say that's a little bit different about GPA is if your GPA isn't listed on your resume, for us at Best Buy, we probably assume that you didn't want us to know, and we have a 3.0 or above that we look at. So if you don't have it and it's above 3, you're actually that's a disservice to yourself, because we won't come asking you for it. We'll just assume you didn't want us to know, and there's lots and lots of people for us to talk to.
Yeah, I think the GPA thing and the one-page thing will vary from company to company. So just do whatever is relevant to you. So if you think this is really important experience, make sure it's highlighted on your resume. And because sometimes I've met people that won't even put their research on their thing or won't do more than a bullet point about it, but that's important information for my positions for me to know. So I've told other classes and stuff too, just if it's relevant, make sure it's on there. If it's gonna help you get a job, make sure it's on there. As far as like going over your resume with somebody at a career fair too, I'd really say use your time wisely. There's a long line. There's lots of people waiting to talk to us and everybody else, and we only get so long with you because of that. So just make sure to go over what you want to do, highlight what you want to talk about quickly, and just like get down to it right away. Like figure out if the company is a good match for you, if you would really be a good fit there, and ask the important questions that you want to know right away. Figure out if they're hiring right away, if it's too early, when you should get in contact with somebody, and make sure to make note of who you talk to and who to get back in touch with in April or May, or if it's right away, if you should send them an email immediately after meeting them. Like, I think that'd be important, just to use your time wisely so you can get around to all the booths and all the different panels that you want to talk to. So,
I keep resumes at my desk anywhere from 6 to 9 months, and I know sometimes people move on their merry way. But sometimes something pops up and I don't have no idea that's going to become available, and I might reach out to you. So how long does your school email address work after you graduate?
A year.
Oh, okay. That's okay, because what I was going to say is that if it wasn't that long, you may at some point want to switch over from a school email address to your own personal email address, just to make sure that I have a way of getting in contact with you. We could pick up the phone, I suppose, but sometimes emails are being used.
One of the things we do hear about, and I don't know if it's any of your organizations, but some organizations, when you're talking to them and you present your resume, will then actually hand you back your resume, so don't get offended. They'll hand you back your resume and say, thanks for talking today. We don't collect resumes. Please go on to our website and fill out the online application. A lot of head bobbing up here. A lot of organizations are getting to the point now where they don't save paper, and you have to be in their database to be considered for a position. So many times either they'll hand back your resume or they will say to you, thanks for coming, now go to our company and fill out the online application to be considered. And I'm seeing a lot of head bobbing up here, so that's definitely a thing to consider, is that you may need to do both in order to be a valid candidate for any of the positions.
Quick plug for the Career Development Center. They do a really great job of going over your resume with you. If you are worried about it or anything, I've gone there many times. They'll help you with wording, with making sure everything's in the right tense, just what you think should be in the right placement. So they do a really good job if you're ever worried. And I'm sure we have a few more weeks before the career.
Thank you. And kind of as a plug for that, I don't know if you saw on the screen up ahead of time or in any of the advertising, something we're doing different this year is we are doing resume critiques following this event out in the hallways. So there's some tables set up out there. Some of the counselors will be available. We can give you a couple quick minutes at least to do a one-over on it. Maybe you make some recommendations, and then you can come back to the office at another time. So thanks for mentioning that, Maggie. Appreciate it. All right. Let's move on. It's kind of related to the resumes, but it's the company. How much time should I spend there? How many companies should I talk to? How many should I research ahead of time? Some of those kinds of things as far as numbers, because people always want numbers. How many and how much time? It's kind of a student question. It is? I thought it was an employer question. How many, like when you went to the fair, you kind of mentioned how many how many resumes you brought, about 20?
Yeah, I brought about 20. I think I went to 12 companies last year.
And how much time how long were you there?
I was there, well, you should try to go as early as you can because it's not as busy right in the morning. But I think I was there for about 4 hours. But after I would talk to a company, I would go to a table and I would write down who I talked to, what we talked about, and have that all on a piece of paper, because they have like little high top tables everywhere that you can write down the information. That way, when you're going back the next day or that afternoon, you remember like, oh, this was this person. It's something that you can remember them by, or else they all kind of blend together.
The app has a place. If it's not really obvious, but if you're using the app, which is really on the spot, user friendly, there's a spot in the app for each company to write notes. So you can actually do that on the app as well. But if you're a paper pencil kind of person, it works well too. But great tip.
Yeah, well, I guess the app will take care of that. But what I did was I'd always ask for a business card. Hopefully they'd be carrying them. And so you have the name, the company, and then you can jot down some notes on the back just about your conversation, what you talked about, what the roles that you were interested in. I talked to a few companies, but again, just be prepared, know what you want to do. And yeah,
How much time did you spend at the fair, Zach?
Probably 2.5 hours. I mean, I didn't want to wander around the fair, looking like not doing anything. You know, just be aware of how you carry yourself. Just get in. If there's nothing else for you to do, if you've already gone in, talked to the companies you want, then leave. Don't just hang around and like chit chat with a bunch of people, unless you're networking, of course. I'm a proponent of that.
That might be different now with the app, because and I keep mentioning that, but you're going to be able to do research on the spot. And because there's so many companies there, if you're walking around and you see a company that's there and you don't have a clue who they are, if you have the ability to pull that app up and do some research, and I am going to bring my iPad to the St. Thomas table so that you can, if you want to, come out and do it there. But because this is a chance to have FaceTime with employers, I don't know how many of you started looking for a job, but when you're emailing and calling people, these people are really busy. They can't respond to everything. When you're at the fair, you can talk to people. You get face-to-face time. You get eye contact and a handshake at least. So don't run out of there as fast as you can and say, well, I talked to the 5 I came for, now I'm leaving. So from an employer's perspective, give me an idea what you think when students come up to your table, and it's kind of obvious that they may not know who you are, what you do, but they're there anyway.
Well, sometimes people literally walk up and say, yeah, so what do you guys do? Like, I've never heard of you guys. And you're like, well, chances are you probably even have a smartphone, so you could, or your buddy does, and you could go out in the hall and look it up and say that and have a better prepared speech. So even, like you were just saying, even if you don't do it ahead of time and you see someone who you hadn't thought of, you can still find out just a little bit more, which will make you just a little bit better in terms of your representation of yourself. The other thing that I would say is sometimes, I think especially when you're nervous, I know I do this, I talk really quickly and I want to just get in and out, and I don't really want to linger and ramble and say things I don't mean to say, but know that you're there to talk to employers and employers are there to talk to you, so don't worry about feel comfortable actually having a conversation. And it's especially daunting if there's people in line behind you, which there almost always will be. So you just want to run up and blurt some stuff out and leave your resume and go. No, take a deep breath and, talk about your resume, talk about your experience, talk about why you're interested in the job. And as long as you're not giving obvious cues from the recruiter that, like, we need to move through this, then take the time that you deserve, because you really do. And that's why everyone is here, is to get to know you as the applicant. So don't be afraid to actually take a deep breath and talk about it instead of rushing through.
I kind of have something to say as far as taking your time with the recruiters and the companies that are there. How would I best say this? You just have to remember we're there all day. We have our own version of elevator speeches to give you the information you're looking for about our companies. And so the more, that's why your elevator speeches are so important, because if I know more about you, I can cater our conversation towards that. So if it's, not a match, obviously I can kind of inform you of that, so we're not wasting each other's time. Like, I'm science, so I don't need a, business analyst necessarily, maybe in our corporate side, but that's not what I'm there for. So your elevator speech allows us to kind of steer the conversation one direction so you can get the most important information in our short time together. You will definitely take your time, like you said. We're here to meet you. We want to talk to you. So that's important, it's obvious when the conversation's kind of winding down. I always ask people if they have any questions about that. So, but yeah, the more you know about the company ahead of time, the less I have to explain. But it's not like obviously you're not going to go everything about everybody, and you're going to have lots of questions, or there's still lots for me to tell you, probably overshare about it. So we kind of get going and talking about it all day, so you kind of end up repeating the same thing. So if you have any questions, if it's not making sense because they've been talking all day, just let them know, and they'll definitely be able to answer all your questions and then some.
What about from a recruiter's perspective? Is there a best time to be at the fair? Is there a time that I should try to be there or avoid?
I don't think so for me personally. I'm there all day. It's quieter in the mornings, I've noticed. Showing up late is not a great idea, especially if there's people you want to talk to, if you're prepared for that. Sometimes companies pack up early if they're not that busy, so that could be a little distracting if there's a booth coming down next to you and you're trying to have a meaningful conversation with a company you're really interested in. So I'd say get there earlier, so if there ends up being more opportunities for you and more places you want to be able to communicate with and talk with, then you have that chance at least.
The fair starts at 9. If anyone has special accommodations or needs, they can get in at 8:30, but they have to talk to me ahead of time or let us know that. And then the shuttle. You might have noticed in the slide presentation, but sometimes it goes and people don't pay attention. There is a free shuttle, and it's a different shuttle than the shuttle that goes to Minneapolis. There's going to be, and you'll get an email next Friday, right before job fair, with details in it, but there's a free shuttle, 3 every hour. They start at 8 a.m., so you literally can be down there when the doors open and ready to go, your coat checked, kind of get your bearings about where you're at, and that shuttle goes directly to the doors of the convention center, and it loops. There's 3 shuttles that loop every hour from 8 to 5 o'clock, so we get you down there and back several times a day. Other comments about timing?
Yeah, I would say that you mentioned it's quieter in the morning, but I've always felt that at our booth it seems to be really, really busy in the morning, and there's lots of lines and lots of people waiting to talk with us. And we've always, there's a number of us recruiters that represent different schools, and I always say, yeah, the St. Thomas people are there early because they want to talk to us.
They're the go-getters.
Because we like to play fun at each other. But I would say get there early when the people that you're going to talk with are fresh and have their minds aren't completely clouded by talking with hundreds and hundreds of students. That's when you're fresh, and that's when they're fresh. And so my personal recommendation would be, especially if you're wanting to talk with companies that you believe will be a long line, is get there early to get into that line. I know that when I was a student and went to the private college job fair, I had identified 4 or 5 companies that I was willing to wait in line for. My roommates and we all identified our top 5 list, if you will, and those are the companies we researched and we were willing to wait in line to talk with. And you want to be talking with the people while they're still fresh too.
Any other comments about timing, schedules, best time, anything? No? Okay. Looking through the questions that we have left here. If a student is looking just for a summer internship, how do they figure that out if they walk up to a company? Is there information about interns versus full-time, and how can I speak to that with a company in hoping to find or create an internship?
If you're looking for an internship, you should have that on your resume as an objective. We also have, Hennepin County will be having signs above our booth that'll say internships available. And hopefully this year we're also going to actually list them so it's readily available to the students.
A lot of the booths have signs saying positions available or jobs available or internships available, so you know for sure. Or if you look online, they should say that they have internships available like on their actual site. So that's something to look for. But I would say most have internships available. If you start talking, they'll let you know that if they don't have internships available, like they'll stop you, at least in my experience.
I know that 2 summers ago, I think, or maybe 3 summers ago, Boom Lab didn't offer internships. We didn't have a set internship program, but we still took resumes because you never know if something was to pop up, and we really like to know that we met you and still chatted. So don't let there not being an intern listed somewhere in the site deter you from going and meeting the employers. Still great. And then the next year, if you're looking for full-time work, or 2 years down the line, you can say, oh, I met you 2 years ago. I've been able to do my research. I've catered these things with you in mind, and whatever that might be. And that being said, we said we didn't have internships available during the fair because we didn't, but we kept the resumes of people that we wanted to give, or that we liked, and then it turns out we had an internship open up. So we had these people that we chatted with and ended up reaching out to one of them and choosing an intern out of that. So even if it doesn't say, even if there's no sign, even if it doesn't say internships available, that doesn't mean you shouldn't meet them, especially if it's something that you would consider 2 years down the road for full-time work.
When you two were looking for, well, go ahead if there was somebody else down there, but I was thinking from a student's perspective. When you were looking for internships, how was that received? How did you shop for internships when you were there?
Well, again, they have signs in a lot of the booths, so I'd usually approach and just ask about, can you tell me a little bit about this internship? I saw this. And then I had prepared questions about the internship that I would ask. And then just kind of go with the conversation, let it flow. When they answer your questions, I'm sure you'll come up with more questions. So just talk, and you'll find out a lot about that. But again, if they don't have internships, definitely still connect with them. Ask for a business card, because you never know down the line if there is an opportunity that can open up.
I think this is still available, but last year when I went, I actually submitted my resume online ahead of time. Okay, so I can do that.
Yep.
So I set it in. It was kind of like I don't know where it went, but I got if you can answer this.
I will talk about this. On the MNPC Fair site, where it's the website, mnpcfair.org. That's where you get the list of employers if you don't have the app, or the initial list at least. When you go into the student menu, on the left-hand side is a drop-down box of all of kinds of things that you can do there, one of which is to download your resume. Some employers do look at this ahead of time, prior to the fair. Other employers use it after the fair, because your resume stays in there until we dump it out for the next year. I actually had a student 2 years ago, went to the fair, didn't really get anything. He was shopping for an internship. I saw him in the fall, and I said, what'd you do? And he said, well, I found an internship. And I said, great. And he said, well, sort of from the job fair. And I'm like, how? And he goes, well, my resume was in that database. I never talked to the employer at the fair, but after the fair, they followed up with me because they found my resume in there, because then they figured out they had an opening, and they were going through to look for people that were available still. So put your resume in there. It can't hurt. It's a passive thing. It's sitting there, but you never know who's going to stumble on it.
Yeah. I would highly recommend doing that, because I sent it in about a month ahead of the fair, and I had 3 internships set up before the job fair even started.
Internships or jobs?
Interviews.
Or interviews?
Interviews,
Oh,
sorry.
good. Wow, I thought, wow,
Interviews.
she's good.
So the interviews do happen from that. You never know. So that was for when I was looking for an internship. And if you just go and keep talking, you be really personable, and then you never know what could happen.
Okay. All right. We've talked a little bit about this, but more specific. I actually had a student one time worried that they were going to get an offer the day of the fair, and they were like, well, now how do I negotiate what I do? Never in 30 years have I ever had anyone walk out of the fair with an offer in hand, so don't worry about that. Instead, what you should be thinking about is how do you follow up? This is really a networking event, and how do you follow up with these employers? And many of you have alluded to follow up, keep connected, stay connected. What are the best ways to do that? How have you done that? And from a recruiter's perspective, what works best for you?
Okay, if you have their business card, if you have their email, I'm always about a thank you over email. Some people say the letters, like an actual physical letter, are better. I'll let you guys answer that. But email is sometimes easier just to be able to see. I'm always about thank you so much for your time, just short and sweet, and that they really appreciate that, even if they just quick glance at it.
Yeah, definitely. Shoot an email. Just reiterate what you guys talked about. Restate your interests, what you want. And then, I mean, who knows? If you have a good conversation, maybe you can ask if you can add them on LinkedIn or whatnot. Again, I'll let the recruiters kind of touch on all that, but I think that's probably good.
And your email should also contain electronic copy of your resume. And if you ask them a question that they have to respond to you, then you know you're going to get another networking opportunity. So you might want to ask them a question, and they have to call you back.
Ah, that's a real inside tip. That's a trick.
I would agree that email is the way to go. If I get something from snail mail, I might not get it for like a month, literally, because I don't check my snail mail mailbox very often because nothing ever comes in it. So email is fast and it's direct, and you know that that person is reading it because they're on email all day long. So in terms of business cards, we actually don't hand out a lot of business cards because everything really has to be done through our recruiting team. And so if you were to ask someone at our booth about business cards, they likely won't have them. It's not that we don't want to give them to you. We just don't really use a lot of business cards anymore.
How do you follow up then?
Well, in terms of if you're really interested in the role, to your point earlier, we would have you, you'd need to apply electronically, and then we would get your resume through our electronic feed. So that's how we would follow up with you if we had that interest in bringing you in for an interview. I think it probably depends on the size of the organization, to be honest.
I think follow-up is so important. I know myself, I'm just a sucker for somebody who emails me. I had a candidate who just said, hey, I can't seem to get an interview. I send out a rejection one when I'm closing a position for the company, just saying that this position's closed, so at least you know. So anyways, he responded to that email just saying, I haven't been able to get an interview. Do you have any tips or advice? I just really appreciate any of your time. And so I ended up bringing him in for an interview and going over his resume and kind of giving him some suggestions. So that's kind of helpful. Just because I have a soft spot for that, because I want to help you. That's kind of my job. I want you to get a job. So following up, email is way important. Phone call, so sometimes you can't hear people clearly. Their cell phone's cutting out. They forget to leave their phone number to call you back, and I had 3 missed calls that day, and I don't know who they're all from, doesn't list a name, anything like that. And I know I'm not at my desk all day. I'm doing interviews and other things like that. So email, I never purposely ignore you, so I always try to get back to you in a timely manner, but you have to know they're doing other things too, so it might take a little time to get back to you. Electronic copy of resume is super important. Even though I love having the paper ones and being able to look at it with you during the fair, if you're following up, just include that. It's just because then I can put it into my system. I can send it to my managers to consider you for positions, anything like that. So way more helpful, and just apply right away if you're interested, because then you're in our system and database, and then we can just, it makes it a lot more simple to move forward. So
Emails should also be in business correspondence and not in text correspondence. And at times I get the heading of an email, hey, comma, da 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 da, and I don't appreciate that personally.
Sure.
Just to do on the follow-up piece, while we may not necessarily follow up with you, if your elevator speech had that grabber, that thing that said, ooh, I want to remember Sally Smith because she, fill in the blank. Like the orange necklace? Well, or she told me something about what was really relevant to the work that we're doing. I'll probably make note of that somewhere so that when your resume does come in, I'm kind of looking out for that one, right? That's kind of the other side of the follow-up, I think, on our end.
Okay, thanks. Well, I'm aware of time. It's almost 1 o'clock, so we have 2 things left to do. One is to draw for door prizes, and you do need to be present to win. So what I'm going to do is hand the basket down. We'll start with Maggie. Dig one out. If you want to hand the mic down this way, Maggie can read the name out. And we'll just do one per person along the way here, and they can read. I have 2 leather portfolios, and I have 4 free registrations for the fair. So when your name is called, come on up, and we'll make the deal. But before we do that, can we thank the panel for being here today? We really appreciate your insights and for you being here. Did you have something you want to add?
Does it cost them to go to the fair?
Yes, it does. Yes, $20. Yeah, about that. Okay, so we're going to draw the names. Maggie's got the first one. She's going to read. It's one of the leather portfolios.
Matt Willis.
Is Matt still here? Matt? All right, come on up, Matt. All right, Zach's got one.
Matthias Nagel.
All right. Want to hand me that, Zach? Thanks. Now the 4 free registrations.
Jackie Ellingson.
Come on up, Jackie. I'll take that card. Thanks.
Jenna Birch.
Who was that last one? Jenna Birch.
Jenna Birch.
Oh, all right. Hand me the card, and I'll make note.
Natasha Ross.
Just a second, I'll tell you.
Joe Flake.
Was everyone here? We got Natasha here. Okay. And then who was the last one?
Joe Flake.
Joe Flake? Is he here? Oh, good. Okay, good. Well, thanks much for coming. There are resume critiques that will be happening out in the hallway then. And if you have questions, come on in.